We fish you a merry goatfish, we fish you a merry goatfish, we fish you a merry goatfish, and a mighty verse is. The goat and fish sing, this verse we shall win. Fine verses for goatfish and for all goat and fish. We goat you a merry goatfish, we goat you a merry goatfish, we goat you a merry goatfish, and a mighty verse is. Don't bring us a fancy sitter, don't bring us a fancy sitter, don't bring us a fancy sitter, only bring goat and fish. Goatfish you a merry goatfish, goatfish you a merry goatfish, goatfish you a merry goatfish, and a mighty verse is. The goat and fish sing, this verse we shall win. Fine verses for goatfish and for all goat and fish. Goatfish you a merry goatfish, goatfish you a merry goatfish, goatfish you a merry goatfish, and a mighty verses.
Now I tried to do harmony and I failed. I'm sorry.
Goat versus fish. In the beginning, there was goat versus fish. The GoatFish! And Goat versus Fish said that there should be goat and that there should be fish. There is no alpha or omega. There is no black or white. There is no good or evil. There is only goat and fish. And Goat versus Fish, the GoatFish. Welcome to the Goat vs. Fish podcast, recorded at the world-famous comedy store Los Angeles, a place of Goat vs. Fish, the GoatFish. Goat vs. Fish speaks to you now, speaks to you now. You are part of Goat vs. Fish, forever Goat vs. Fish. And Goat vs. Fish is a part of you. You have many questions, yes? Who is the GoatFish? What is the GoatFish? Why is the GoatFish? But there is only one question. Are you goat or are you fish? Ponder it now. Are you goat or fish? Yes, you are. Goat or fish are you? You are fish or goat? Who shall triumph, goat or fish? Or shall we form the unity of the GoatFish? Let us find out on this verses of Goat versus Fish. Merry GoatFish, merry GoatFish. You have waited all verses, and now, at long last, is the verses of the GoatFish. The GoatFish, yes, when a goat and fish together form the unity of the GoatFish. Of course, all things are goat versus fish, but in the verses of the GoatFish we celebrate the unity of the GoatFish. It is a verses of much celebration of goat and fish, and goat versus fish. All manner of goaty and fishy celebration, yes. Goaty goat for the goat, fishy fish for the fish, and even fancy fence for the fence sitter who has not yet chosen goat or fish, but who has heard the word of goat versus fish. Yes, during the verses of the GoatFish, all who have heard the word of goat versus fish join as one in celebration of goat, fish, the land, the sea, fence sitters, goat versus fish, and of course, the GoatFish. For I am Goat versus Fish, the GoatFish, Goat versus Fish. We wish you a pleasant GoatFish and a mighty verses. And in this verses of the GoatFish, Goat versus Fish speaks to a one. The ones go by many names, and what do the ones call this one?
I am Amanda Cohen, fish.
You are a fish.
I am fish.
Goat versus fish. Knew this one was a fish. Knew this one was a fish.
I am very fish.
Yes, this one is very fish. Goat versus fish has spoken to this fish many times. But let us celebrate this fish. Let us celebrate this fish. Hi, fish. Hi, fish.
Hi, fish. There we go.
Yes, there we go. We go to the fish. We go fish, yes.
Go fish. Not goat fish. Go fish.
Now, goat versus fish knows the ones listening. Knows the ones listening. Sometimes they like to hear it. They like to hear goat versus fish ask the question. Yes, you know the question, don't you? What is the question, fish?
The question is, are you goat or fish?
Yes, that is the question. And now goat versus fish will ask this one. It is always time to ask again. No matter how many times this fish says it is fish, it is always time to ask the question.
Ask me the question.
Are you goat or are you fish?
I am fish.
It is a fish. You see how it is a fish. You see how it is a fish? Fence sitters, do you take note? Do you take note? Is a note a goat or a fish? It could be a goat or a fish. Be a goat or a fish. 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 Are you a proud fish? Tell us of this proud fish. Tell us all about this proud fish.
I am proud to be a fish because I enjoy being underwater. I enjoy breathing underwater, not as a fish breathes, but as a person fish breathes using underwater apparatus, which I find necessary to breathe underwater were it possible for me to not breathe underwater, or rather to breathe underwater without apparatus. I would choose to do so, but I cannot because I'm still basically a person, but I am a fish.
You are a fish, yes, you are a fish.
Yes.
You have said this thing, person, yes. Goat versus fish has heard this word, person, yes, being said by many goat and fish. Goat versus fish is not sure yet if it is a goat or a fish, or perhaps it is just another way of describing the ones. But you are a fish. You are of the sea.
I am working towards total fishness.
Yes, yes, always becoming more fish.
I
becoming
am
more
always
fish.
becoming more
Yes,
fish
yes.
because I find that I am still weighted down by gravity and these appendages, these arms and legs, which have no webbing, which I must put on my feet in order to swim as the fish does, although my swimming at this point is still basically mammalian, as my movements are up and down versus side to side as a true fish, but I am working towards fishness.
You're working towards fishness. Well, of course, the only thing that is not fishness is goatness, yes? Does that mean there is some goatness in this fish? Some goatness that this fish is trying to remove from its very fish?
No, I have no goatness. I have fish and a little bit of verses, which I am fighting to become more fish. When I find goat tendencies within myself,
yes.
I fight them. I fight them heartily.
Yes, you versus them. You versus
I
them.
versus them because I am fish.
And what is one of these verses? Tell goat versus fish about this verses. We all love to hear about the verses of goat and fish, even if it is the verses within, yes.
Well, even as a goat, the goat part of me is still a tropical goat, and the tropical goats climb in trees. And I find that sometimes I am drawn to trees and wish to climb into them to eat the leaves, but I do not do that because I have to remember I am not goat, I am fish.
You are fish, you are fish. Now, Goat versus Fish has spoken to other fish on this, the Goat versus Fish podcast, yes?
Yes.
Many of these fish do start out as if they are sitting on the fence and then later became fish. Goat versus Fish has met many fish that are not as so, but the ones that Goat versus Fish has spoken to on the Goat versus Fish podcast, very few come out and say, I am fish, I am fish. There are many goat who do it. You as a fish do it. You say you are fish, yes?
I am fish.
Yes. Why is it that there are so many fish that do not come out and say, I am fish, in the way that some goat have said, I am goat?
Well, fish, as you know, are wishy-washy. We are fishy-foshy.
You are fishy, yes.
Yes, but may not be entirely willing. It is a property of the liquid in which we live.
The sea?
The sea, or the lake, or the river, or the pond, or the stream.
Yes, it is all the sea, yes. The lake and the pond
Whereas
and
goats,
the stream,
where
yes.
are you? Where are the goats? On the land.
Yes.
Boring.
The land is boring. This fish has said the land is boring to the goat.
7/10 of this planet is underwater. Where do you think the fish are?
In the sea.
Yes, we are.
The fish are of the sea,
In
yes.
the water. That is most of the earth. That is why I am fish, because we dominate. We dominate the planet.
Yes, you have heard it. These fish, they dominate and always dominate the land. How will this fish dominate the land? It is sometimes difficult for the fish to come to the land, but it is goat versus fish, and it is fish versus goat.
It is my choice to dominate through education, which I perform under the guise of stand-up comedy.
And what is stand-up comedy? Is it goat or fish?
It is, in fact, fish because it is fluid and flexible and beautiful and, again, will dominate the universe.
Yes, so you say you are a fish and you do this thing that is fish that you have called stand-up comedy. A fish does a fish. Of course a fish is a fish and does things that a fish would do.
Anything
Yes,
I do
yes.
by definition is fish.
Yes, yes. But are there any goats? Are there any goats who do this this fishy stand-up comedy, as you say this
I believe the goats are the bookers.
What do these goats who are called bookers, you say, what do they do as goat?
Well,
How do they versus the fish? Do they versus the fish? if
They
are goats?
versus the fish when they choose not to hire me. And when they do, they become a little fishier, and that is that, in my opinion, is a mark of goodness in a goat. That a goat may have some fish qualities, which is, of course, an appreciation for the finer arts, such as my jokes.
Yes, yes. And a joke is a goat or a fish?
Joke is a fish.
Joke is also a fish,
Because
yes,
they can
yes.
be slippery and very difficult to catch and very difficult to perfect. I don't know if you've ever cooked fish, but it's very hard to get it right.
Now, Goat versus Fish has heard this fish and knows that this fish is with Goat versus Fish in all things Goat versus Fish. But this fish did speak of goodness. But there is no good or evil. There is only goat and fish. What does this fish mean? What does this fish mean when it speaks of goodness? Is it of the fence sitters that you speak?
When I say the word goodness, I mean closer to fish.
Closer to fish.
Yes, the closer to fish, the better in the American language, in the English language. We still have the word good. It does not mean anything other than, for me, more fish-like. And there is the word bad, and to me, a fish, that means more goat-like.
Now, fish. Goat versus Fish has some questions for this fish. More questions for this fish, yes.
Yes.
Goat versus Fish has heard many ones recently speak of what the ones call Christmas. They speak of Christmas.
It is a holiday that is drawing nigh.
What do the ones speak of when they speak of Christmas? Yes, is it a verses of some kind, a verses that did happen?
It was a verses, and
Yes,
it was a couple thousand years ago, according to some people. There are some who do not believe it happened, but those who do believe it happened say that there was a fish, and a goat came unto her and said, "You shall bear another fish, who shall be a better fish, and who shall teach everyone else to choose between goat versus fish and not be fence sitters," and that fence sitters were evil. And he caused her to have this fish in a manner that did not represent normal breeding behavior for people, because she was actually a people who identified as a fish. And so when she went to her husband and said, "I shall bear a fish," her husband, who was goat, said, "That can't be mine. We haven't had sex yet." And sex, of course, being a very fish thing that people do to create other fish.
Now, it sounds like to Goat versus Fish that there was a goat and a fish that attempted to form the unity of the goat-fish.
Yes.
And then there was a fish. And did this fish that came of the unity of the goat-fish, did it get to choose whether it was goat or fish, or was it simply called a fish? Did they simply call it a fish?
I personally identify him as a fish.
Yes.
I cannot say because I am not him. He can say whether he was fish. I believe, and many of my fellow believers, many of my fellow Fishtians believe
Yes.
that he was a fish.
Yes. And what did this fish do?
Well, this fish was born under a star in a very dry part of the world, which is very odd for fish. So he had a lot of struggles. So he grew up to tell people the message of goat versus fish. But as a fish, of course, he was biased towards fish.
Yes, a fish is a fish.
There is a story that he created many fishes.
Many fish,
many
fish.
to prove that he was not just a fish, but he was fish.
Well, Goat versus Fish is pleased with any fish that makes more fish, yes?
He made many, many fish.
Yes,
and
we should all endeavor to make many fish. Or goat, if you are a goat.
He is a fish. So he made many fish and performed other things that we refer to as miracles. And so the day of his spawning is celebrated traditionally on the 25th day of this month, which I believe is December. And that day is called Fishmas. Christmas.
Ah, that is what is called Christmas.
I
yes.
call it
well,
Fishmas. I call it Fishmas. We, the fish, call it Fishmas.
Well, in the case of this fish, we shall call it Fishmas for this fish. Perhaps if there was a goat, GoatVsFish would call it Goatmas for that goat. But GoatVsFish is speaking to a fish, and we shall call it Fishmas if that is the way it should be called. Yes?
I refuse to accept Goatmas. I'm sorry, I can't accept that.
Are you taking your listening very seriously? Listen to this fish. This fish is very fish, a true fish, a true fish. Now, that is what the ones say about Christmas, yes, or Fishmas, yes. What does this one? This one is a fish, and what does this fish say within its own fish, deep within its own fish? What does this own fish say about this thing that is called Christmas? GoatVsFish would like to say first that in this verses of the Christmas, as this fish described it, described the word evil, yes? But there is no good or evil, there is only goat and fish. So the whole verses of this Christmas does not sound entirely GoatVsFish to GoatVsFish, but if it made a fish that did make more fish, then GoatVsFish is pleased by this, yes.
There is a lot of history behind Christmas, as it is generally called, behind Christmas that predates the story of my fish. In fact, there are stories that go back thousands more years of other fish who were born as magically.
In the beginning, GoatVsFish.
These are actually roughly before the beginning, really, if you consider when the beginning was.
The beginning was GoatVsFish. In the beginning, there was GoatVsFish, the goatfish. This is GoatVsFish.
Right, this is before that.
Before the beginning, that was also GoatVsFish. In the beginning, there was GoatVsFish. In the beginning of GoatVsFish, does GoatVsFish not say that in the beginning there was GoatVsFish? It is in the beginning of GoatVsFish.
There is a time before the beginning.
And it was GoatVsFish.
Before that.
It was GoatVsFish. In all times, in all places, in all things, GoatVsFish.
Yes, but
this is
before
GoatVsFish. Yes, GoatVsFish. Yes, GoatVsFish. GoatVsFish can say it many times, yes? GoatVsFish, 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 GoatVsFish. And you see how every time there is a GoatVsFish, there is a GoatVsFish that is before GoatVsFish.
Yes, but before that.
GoatVsFish.
We could do this all night.
It is GoatVsFish. It is forever GoatVsFish, yes.
Right, but before that,
GoatVsFish will hear this one. Of course, for those who listen, those goat and fish who do listen, yes, and even fence sitters, this one is speaking of a time before GoatVsFish. In the beginning, there was GoatVsFish. Do not be deceived by the words of this one, these fence-sitterly words of this fish. It is a fish. It is a fish. It has said it is a fish. But let us hear this fish. Yes, before the beginning, where there was GoatVsFish, of course, yes.
I'm sorry.
What does this one say? What does this one say?
I'm really sorry that you cannot grasp before.
It is your time to speak, fish. It is your time to speak, fish.
There were... Before, and there was a before, there were other fish. Before GoatVsFish. What I'm saying is that before even goat and before versus, there was a fish. There was a fish known as Mithras. And this fish goes back to the beginning, the real beginning, with people so ancient you could not comprehend how ancient they were. And they also claimed that their fish was born magically of a fish, and that their fish also performed miracles, such as creating more fish, and that this was many thousands of verses before what we refer to as Christmas. So the real Fishmas goes back much farther back than Fishmas. And in fact, the traditional birth of the current fish, who is referred to in Fishmas, was actually probably in a different month, like April. So the arbitrary assignation of December 25th as the birth of the fish, it is in fact arbitrary, but it is celebrated on this date because the original fish, Mithras,
yes,
existed
you have said it, yes.
Far before the current fish.
Far before the current fish, perhaps, but
and
not before the
in
beginning.
a thousand years, there will be many more fish and many more holidays.
Oh, yes, in
celebrated.
more verses, there will be many more fish. Of course, there will be many more fish. Yes, and hopefully many more goat as well. Goat, go out, find more goat. This fish is ready to find more fish. Knows fish that have created more fish. Where are you, goat? Where are you, goat?
I rebuke you, goat.
Now, we have all heard this one. Yes, but let it be an understanding of goat versus fish, that even this fish that is so strong with goat versus fish, that is so strongly versus the goat, that is a fish through and through in all things fish. That even this fish may say something like, before the beginning there was something that was not goat versus fish. There is always more to learn about goat versus fish. There is always more to learn about goat versus fish. And you are learning about goat versus fish. Goat versus fish has another question for this fish, yes?
Yes.
It is the verses of the GoatFish. It is the verses of the GoatFish.
It is. When is it not?
And the GoatFish is the unity of a goat and a fish. You are a fish. Now, you are always versus the goat. It is goat versus fish. But in this verses of the GoatFish, is there not a part of this fish that does not wish to find a goat? To find a goat to form the unity of the GoatFish?
No. I have no desire to associate
not
with the goat.
Even in GoatFish, not even
Not
in the verses
even
of the GoatFish.
Goat. Well, I find it's a very desperate thing to seek a goat as a fish during the holidays. That's the thing that some people do. There's a word for it. It's actually called cuffing season. When a fish feels that in celebration of the season they must.
In celebration of GoatFish.
In celebration of GoatFish, they must be associated with a goat on a regular basis for social reasons. I reject this and remained fish.
Yes, well, it is GoatFish. If you change your mind about a goat, if you find that special goat that you can form the GoatFish.
There is no goat.
Oh, but it is GoatFish. It is GoatFish.
Even at GoatFish, there is no goat.
You hear it. You hear this one. Goat versus fish has said that it is GoatFish to this fish, but no, it is a true fish, and it says it is always goat versus fish. But come, on the verses of the GoatFish, we welcome even the goat and fish, and especially the goat and fish, who do not form the unity of the GoatFish. We welcome all goat and fish. We celebrate all goat and fish. You are welcome in the verses of the GoatFish. Tree, goat or fish.
Fish.
Presents, goat or fish.
Goat.
Reindeer, goat or fish.
Goat.
Flying reindeer, goat or fish.
Fish.
Ah, so a reindeer is a goat, but a flying reindeer is a fish. Yes,
Yes.
Explain this to goat versus
Because
fish.
there are also flying fish.
Ah, there are also flying fish. You have heard it. You have heard it from this fish. Stockings, goat or fish.
Goat.
Toys, goat or fish.
Fish.
Gingerbread, goat or fish.
Versus.
Versus?
Yes.
You mean to say it is a fence sitter? The gingerbread is a fence sitter?
The gingerbread is a fence sitter until it comes alive and identifies itself one way or the other. But otherwise, there's too much variety in the concept of gingerbread for it to be one or the other.
Ah, so it is a fence sitter. It is a fence sitter.
Yes.
Dreidels, goat or fish.
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 Have you seen one? If you put it sideways, it looks like it has a little pointy head and a little tail. It's clearly a fish.
It is clearly a fish. You have heard it. A dreidel is a fish. Latkes, goat or fish.
Fish.
Mistletoe, goat or fish.
It is fish as it inspires love and trust and other fish.
It does sound like a pleasant fish, doesn't it? It
Yes.
sounds like a pleasant fish. Snow, goat or fish.
Snow is goat.
Snow is goat.
I
Why
have-
is snow goat?
I have left the land of snow. I used to live in a land of snow and chose to leave it because it wasn't fish enough for me.
Some say snow is of the sea. Is this so? Is this so? That snow is of the sea?
Snow is of the sky and becomes of the sea as it becomes fish. But when it is in the form of snow, it is goat.
Now you have heard it from this fish that snow is goat. Goat versus fish does not know of the sky, but snow is goat, says the fish. Pope Francis, goat or fish?
Goat.
Goat.
Old goat.
An old goat. Elves, goat or fish?
Goats.
Consumerism, goat or fish?
Goat.
Consumerism is a goat.
Yes.
Milk and cookies. Which is goat, which is fish?
Milk is goat. Cookies are fish.
Are they versus one another, or do they form the unity of the goat
They
fish?
form the unity of
Ah,
the
they form the
goatfish,
unity
which
of the
is why we
goatfish.
have them at Fishmas.
Yes, during GoatFish.
During
GoatFish.
GoatFish,
It
yes.
seems that this fish wanted to say something of consumerism that you did say was a goat. What did this fish wish to say?
You're aware that goats will eat anything.
Yes,
correct?
many goats have claimed it.
Which
yes.
is what makes consumerism, by definition, goat.
Ah, they do consume it.
Yes.
Yes. You have heard this fish. Myrrh. Goat or fish?
Goat, because it is useless.
Ah, it is a goat because it is useless. Useless goat, says the fish. It pleases goat versus fish to hear this verses. Wise man number one, goat or fish?
Fish.
Wise man number 2,
Fish.
goat or fish. Wise man number 3, goat or fish?
Goat, because he was a follower.
Ah, but it is 2 fish versus this one goat?
The first fish saw the star and said, "We need to go there." The second fish agreed. And the third fish said, the third goat said, "Whatever you guys are doing, I'm just going to follow you."
It does not sound like this goat is a strong goat. It is following the fish.
Yes.
The Virgin Mary, goat or fish?
Goat. No, I'm sorry. Fish.
It is a fish.
She
yes.
is a fish.
Joseph, goat or fish?
Goat.
Ah, these are the ones. Are these the ones that you did speak of when you did tell the
Yes.
the verses? Ah, these are the ones, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, hallowed be thy name. Goat versus fish has heard this. Is it a goat or a fish?
Fish.
It is a fish. It has been said that it is a fish. Figgy pudding, goat or fish?
Goat.
Figgy pudding is a goat. You say goat. It almost sounds like you were pleased when you said it was a goat.
No, I am not pleased. It is disgusting and therefore a goat.
What do you say to the goat? Now is the time to hear what this one has to say. What do you say to the goat?
Goat, redeem yourself. Become fish.
What do you say to the fish?
Welcome. Welcome, fish. I welcome you in love and sister brotherhood, brother sisterhood, fishhood. I welcome you in fishhood.
What do you say to the fence sitter?
Pick a side, for God's sake, Jesus!
Yes, that is the one. The Jesus, yes, you have said it is a fish. Pick fish. You are saying for them to pick fish. Yes.
Jesus fish.
Yes, yes. And what do you say to goat versus fish?
To goat versus fish, I say, Merry Fishmas and a fishy new year.
Merry Fishmas. Yes,
Merry
Merry
Fishmas.
Fishness
Merry
to this one as
Fishmas.
well. Yes, yes, yes. And what do you say to the ones who are looking to celebrate the verses of the GoatFish, but do not know how to celebrate?
Well, to celebrate, one must first identify as a fish, and then you may celebrate with all manner of food and drink, and especially drink, because as fish we tend to drink, we drink a lot. Whereas goat, you may identify as fish, or you may go have your own party.
Now, fish.
Yes.
You are a fish. Would you be willing to come back to this Goat versus Fish podcast and versus a goat, to meet a goat and versus a goat on the Goat versus Fish podcast? Would this fish do it?
Absolutely, yes.
Then we shall see. We shall see if there is a goat that accepts the challenge of this fish. Yes, that accepts the verses of this fish.
I dare you.
If any goat or fish or even fence sitter wishes to speak with this fish, how would they do this? How would they do this?
On the Twitter and on the Instagram, you may find me at Amanda Cohen 27, AmandaCohen 27.
Thank you for being a part of Goat versus Fish.
Thank you, Goat versus Fish, the GoatFish, for having me.
Yes, always thank Goat versus Fish. Always thank Goat versus Fish.
Thank you.
Pleasant GoatFish.
Happy Fishmas.
The time has come, goat, fish, and fence sitter alike, to sing, to sing, to sing in celebration of Goat versus Fish. Today we sing in celebration not just of Goat versus Fish, but of the merry goatfish within each goat and fish. Let us sing in celebration of the GoatFish. On the first verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me a goat versus a fish. On the second verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the third verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 3 goatfish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the fourth verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 4 goat and fish, 3 goatfish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the fifth verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me goat versus fish. 4 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 6th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. And on the 7th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 8th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 9th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 9 goat and fish, fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 10th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish, fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 11th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 11 goat and fish, 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish, fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 12th verse of GoatFish, the GoatFish gave to me 12 fish and goat, 11 goat and fish, 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish, fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. Pleasant GoatFish to all goat and fish.
Merry Fishmas.
Happy GoatFish, movie house.
Thank you for joining GoatVsFish. This is the word of GoatVsFish. The theme music for this verses was an offering by Mchinery on Soundcloud. And if you, one who listens, has a celebration of GoatVsFish, send it to goatvsfish@gmail.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the GoatVsFish podcast on the YouTube and the iTunes. Follow GoatVsFish on all social media. The Instantgram, the Book of Faces, the Twitterver, all at GoatVsFish, all at GoatVsFish. Join the GoatVsFish discussion group on the Book of Faces to discuss Goat versus Fish with other goat and fish. And when you are out in the land and the sea, look about you. Look about you. Find one who is lost. Find one who does not know the way. Find one who does not know the pleasantness of the goatfish. And ask. Simply ask. Are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or fish? Are you goat or fish? Thank you for joining Goat vs. Fish. I am Goat vs. Fish. The GoatFish. And though it's been said many times, say it many times.
Many times.
It was written. It was written. And it was written. Goat versus fish.